Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, which means we're back with another City Council recap. I'm Elizabeth. I'm the digital strategist here in the D10 office. And Matt and I are here to talk about yesterday's council meeting. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty well. Good morning, Liz. How are you?
I'm all right. Just, bouncing back from that first shot of the vaccine, as I know you are too. But let's dive right into this. San Jose is hiring a new director for the Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department. It's a mouthful, so we just say PBCE. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so yesterday, council discussed questions for candidates to fill the newly open role of director for our Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Department, as you mentioned. And so that covers a lot. That's everything from the permitting process for big developments, a big residential tower downtown, to something much smaller like putting a pool in your backyard or remodeling your kitchen, or even getting solar panels on your roof. The city manages and requires permits and often inspections for most in changes to the physical environment, so buildings and remodeling and all that sort of stuff. So really important department where we find that our residents most often interface with that office is around those basic home improvement permits. And we get a lot of feedback. There's been, frankly, a lot of frustration over the past year as that office has had to transition to being totally remote and mostly online. And there's just been some confusion and lag time. And I think it's been a difficult transition for everyone in kind of all fields. But that's an area where we want to see improvements. And I appreciated that a number of the questions that we approved yesterday for, again, this is for candidates for that role. We're going to be interviewing various candidates. A number of those questions had to do with streamlining processes, measuring the effectiveness of that office, and ensuring that we're delivering really high quality customer service to our residents who don't want to wait 90 days to get an interview, to get a permit, to do a minor or seemingly routine home improvement. So it was it's a good set of questions. I'm looking forward to seeing who the candidates are and seeing how they perform, and we'll keep people updated as we make that hire.
Yeah, I know we asked the community what their questions would be, so thank you so much to everybody who answered that survey. I know I really appreciated the questions about accessibility, something I think about in my job.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you to everyone who filled out our survey on that. Just, for those who are watching, we try to solicit as much feedback from all of you as possible every time I submit questions for a candidate or just general kind of feedback that I'm giving at council. We want to know what your questions and concerns are. So thanks to everybody who filled that out.
Yeah, quick sidebar about that, actually. There's currently in our social media, and I'll link it somewhere, we have a survey out right now about the city's budget. We are in the budget process right now. Well, that's not something we're diving into this recap. We really want community involvement with that, because the budget is how the city actually works. That is the definitive document. So please fill that out if you can.
Great point.
Yeah. Staying on that vein of community involvement, the campaign finance reform item you guys talked about at the end of the meeting had a lot of people from the public calling in. So tell us about what happened around that, Matt.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in that topic. So Councilmember Jimenez, who's our neighbor here in District 2, just kind of east of us, southeast of our district, he put forward a memo outlining a number of potential reforms, and we did have a lot of public comment. I think a lot of people are reacting to recent elections, particularly the most recent election we had in San Jose, but there's certainly been a history of this going back. We have outside groups in our political system that spend money in elections in San Jose, who often engage in negative advertising, and it can be confusing to residents. Often they think that those messages come from candidates. I remember in my election, there were mailers. Most of the mail that was sent out was not from the candidates. And so people get confused. They say, why are you sending me 5 pieces of mail or 10 pieces of mail? And the truth is, it's an outside group that either is supporting or opposing a given candidate. So it's a lot of frustration and confusion. And so we're looking at a wide range of potential reforms to local elections. And, it's a challenging conversation because, of course, we also have to be responsive to our Constitution and the First Amendment, and people have a right to speech. And so we have to be thoughtful about how we regulate elections. One category of reforms that we're going to explore. So yesterday was just a conversation about what we're asking staff to look at. And one category has to do with disclosures and transparency. And I'm a big believer in those kinds of reforms. As I said yesterday, common saying, but sunshine is the best disinfectant. People ought to know who's spending money, who's giving money, where an ad comes from. That to me makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. The other set of things we're looking at has more to do with contributions to candidates. And the only thing we have to be careful of there, in my opinion, is the more that we restrict candidates from doing fundraising, the more power we give to outside groups, which are basically unregulatable because they have First Amendment protections around speech. You can't really tell an outside group, whether it's a chamber of commerce or a labor union or any other kind of entity, according to a long history of Supreme Court decisions, you can't really tell them, you can't limit their speech. Mm-hmm. If they have money and they want to spend it to put out a political message, they can, and the city can't regulate that. So I think we're going to discuss what, if any, further restrictions we want to put on candidates' ability to fundraise. I think that'll be part of the conversation. An element of that is the concept of public financing, which some cities have done. Often, some ways of structuring that are more successful than others. Some have been challenged in the courts. Basically, we're going to explore a wide range of potential reforms to try to make local elections more transparent, get more people involved, and just make sure that we don't have one outside group or a couple of outside groups dominating the political conversation. But I will say, I think there's risks as well. We have to be careful. We don't want to accidentally make it difficult for candidates to get their message out. We don't want to make those outside groups even more powerful. So it was an interesting conversation, and I think we'll see what recommendations staff brings back. One final thing I'll note, and you and I were talking about this, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but at the beginning of the item, we had an outside expert who's a lawyer come in and just give us a rundown of the various types of political or campaign reforms that cities, counties, and states typically pursue, and then the constitutional issues that are relevant and what typically does and doesn't work. So we got a nice primer on the constitutionality of political reforms. So yeah, I thought that was a good presentation.
Yeah, no, in my previous life, I worked at a law firm, so it gave me like a lot of those same vibes, like, yes, it's effective. But yeah, I really enjoyed that presentation. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the city attorney's office comes up with, because as one of your colleagues said, smarter people, maybe some of you guys coming up with those things. But yeah, I'm looking forward.
Yeah, we shouldn't reinvent the wheel, right? I mean, a lot of people have worked on this issue, so there's a lot to learn from other cities.
Yeah, the Seattle Patriot dollars are Seattle.
They have a voucher system where, basically voters get dollars that they can apply to candidates.
That was interesting. But yeah, we're talking this one a little bit up too much. Let's talk about something we didn't preview, but ended up taking up a good bit of conversation yesterday, which was about a grant SJPD got to fight crimes against children on the internet. Can you tell us about that? Yeah,
just briefly, I think it's great that San Jose PD is focused on internet crimes and specifically against children. I think we often think about crime in terms of the offline world, anything from, in an extreme case of homicide to a package theft. And the reality is that we're spending more and more time online. And while the internet's an amazing tool, there's also risks, and particularly for our children. And so we want to make sure our children are protected when they're online, and our police department has applied for and received and is using grant money from the state to basically investigate internet crimes targeting children and do more education. So we talked a bit about that. I think it's great. I think it's an area that we probably, historically as a society have not, and we're still playing catch up. Essentially, as technology changes. And so it's great to see our police department thinking about and working on crime in that area. So yeah, that was the other main item yesterday.
Yeah, as someone whose job is the internet, I'm glad that we're making sure kids are safe. So yeah,
absolutely.
It was a quick council meeting, relatively speaking. Yesterday.
Yeah, I think we were done by 6 or 6:30 or something like that.
Yeah, you probably had time to have dinner with the kids. So we're gonna make this quick too. Thanks everybody for watching, and you'll see us again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.